In this episode, we're talking about the rhythm of leadership. What makes leadership effective? Where are we in our self discovery journey? And so much more. I'm Dr. Bill Sodeman, and let's take a step on the perfect route. Welcome to the show. Hope everybody's having a good day and is ready for a very interesting episode where we're talking with Dr. Terry Daniels.
Yeah. Yeah. Glad
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great.
Awesome.
Very interested to hear your insights on business coaching. You've been doing this for a long time, Terry.
Just a little bit.
Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. Bill, appreciate you letting me come on. My background is long journey of human resource leadership, more than 30 years. And before that, Bill, I actually worked on the manufacturing floor in a aluminum rolling mill as a mill operator for 11 years, swing shift.
Oh boy.
And it was a high performance work system. So it was in that space where I really learned the nuances of team dynamics, people leadership, and those things from the floor level up. Because it was a brand new location, I was probably one of the first 30 people hired out of over 1,000 people. And so,
Wow.
and once I left there, I got my bachelor's while I was there. But once I left there and went into a professional role, I didn't mean to say also at the same time, I've been a pastor of a church more than 30 years as well. And so I was doing that at the same time, working swing shift, at the same time going to school with me and my wife at that time, no children at that time. And so once I got my first professional role in human resources, 30 years of human resource leadership, the last few years of those were global responsibility with locations in Germany, China, France, Japan, Spain. So I was traveling a lot there. Prior to that, I was traveling nationally here in the US quite a bit. At the same time, passing the church, at the same time, finishing my PhD and master's. So just nonstop. I love what I do. And as I said, I've been a pastor for more than 30 years. The church I'm with now, I planted it 8.5 years ago. And so I still pastored that church, another church I pastored for 25 years. And so it's been a consistent journey of people engagement, people leadership, really making a difference and making an impact with lives. And I feel like it's just my natural calling. So I love what I do.
And it's always gratifying to hear stories like yours where people find their calling and have the opportunity to pursue it.
Yeah.
I worked in HR for a time and was a business professor still am a business professor. And people are really the focus of my career. Everything else revolves around advising and helping people learn how to learn
Yeah.
because that, as you saw in graduate school, a lot of that journey is about, learning how to advance your knowledge and improve your skills on a continual basis.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, I think you're right on. It's just I'm a nonstop learner. No matter what I do, I'm like you. I'll never stop learning. Every moment is a new teaching moment.
It is. That's the way I approach the day. I read somewhere that people have between 60 and 100,000 thoughts a day. And I try to make as many of those thoughts learning thoughts as
Absolutely.
much as I can.
Yeah, that's a big number. Yeah, that's good insight right there.
It is a big number, and when I ask people that, they usually answer maybe a few thousand thoughts. Sometimes I've had people guess as high as 50,000 thoughts.
Mm,
Um, and it's always interesting to have those kinds of discussions with people because we take so much for granted during our days. And business coaching for me is looking beyond what's normal and ordinary
absolutely.
to define those moments that call for extraordinary leadership and insight.
Yeah, for sure.
So, how did you get into business coaching from such an interesting background?
Yeah, great question. I was doing the international travel, and like I said, all the things that I was doing. And at some point, I had to decide, what am I going to really do after I finished the PhD work at age 57? I finished that
Mhm.
at age 57. I asked myself, what am I going to do when I grow up? Because
Okay.
trying to be a pastor of a church, take care of my family, support the family working wise, it was just quite a bit. And so I just said, I've got to do something different. I saw something maybe out on LinkedIn or something. And it was that place that I made the inquiry. And when I made the inquiry, the rest is history. It was natural for me to say yes, big investment, big change, big lifestyle. Again, I came into this space with the same concerns, trepidations others may have. Like, can I really make this work? Can I get clients? Can I do that? And so again, I stepped into this space questioning whether I could do it. Believe it or not, with my background. But one of the coaches that I was working with inside a focal point simply said, you know what? In Kentucky, I'm in Kentucky. In Kentucky, there's
Mhm.
over 38,000 businesses. You only need 10. So that
Mhm.
perspective really let me step back and say, I think I can do this. And so that's what made me step into it is I really needed to change to test my own potential to see if it was really real or was it Memorex? Old commercial, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I remember the Memorex commercials, and that takes me back.
Yeah, me too.
We've both been at this for a while. I'm a newer focal point coach than you are,
Mhm.
and, I was drawn into the business coaching orbit for some of the same reasons you have, and, it's been an interesting journey. One of the things that I often consider is what sort of leadership challenges do our clients have? And I was curious about your insights there.
That's a question that I've heard quite a bit, Bill, and I try to keep things simple in that, you know, I have a lot of different clients, executive coaching to business coaching to different entities. And what I find is it boils down to one thing that we're coaching to, just one thing. Now, they may say, I need to learn how to be a better communicator. They may say, I need to learn how to have better executive presence, or I need to hold my team accountable, or build strong engagement. All of those things, I think those are outputs of one challenge that we're always facing with individuals. And that is leadership is leadership is leadership. And it's the effectiveness or the lack thereof. We're always dealing with one issue, and it's the person and it's their leadership and its effectiveness or the lack thereof. So I think what we're chasing tends to be a lot of different topics. And so I always begin with a self awareness through the emotional intelligence assessment that we use. And so if we can understand ourselves, we can decide how much I can grow, how much I want to grow. If I think about a psychological research that says that over 70, 80% of our personalities are formed before the age of 7, if there's any validity to that, then I've discovered that you can't really teach another adult anything.
Mhm.
Coaching does is we try to create the space for self-discovery. So if I can begin with the emotional intelligence assessment, getting a higher self-awareness, then we can develop ourselves even more. But the person will self-discover not because of my intellect, my knowledge, my input. I've just created a space. So leadership and leadership coaching and business coaching, I think, are natural outputs to that self-discovery process.
That's an interesting perspective that I share. A good bit of my career has been self-discovery, which I've found very helpful. And I agree with you about the primary challenge that, you know, the overall effectiveness of leadership, are we doing the right things, is paramount. So much of the operational side of business is transactional and focused on efficiency,
Yes.
doing things right, that it's easy to lose sight of effectiveness.
Mhm. Well, I
And
think as a people, it's a people world, right? And so effectiveness is going to be derived from the leader's effectiveness or their lack thereof, and they are driving everything around them. So how can we help them be more effective? I think you're right. I think it's that connectivity that we're looking for.
speaking of connectivity, I often consider the impact of leaders on not only on their peers, but on their teams.
Hmm.
We've been in an era of management where teams have become remote in many cases. And to me, that brings up a lot of challenges.
Hmm.
We're not in the same room right now, for example. We both have video calls and clients that we work with remotely. And people who we serve as trusted advisors often are spanning the globe or spanning the country, trying their best to convey that sense of leadership and to be trusted advisors themselves from a distance. How do you think that factors into what we do as coaches?
Here's Bill, my secret sauce that I'll go ahead and give it to you and your audience. My secret sauce is that I brand myself, and I've done this for so many years, even before I started my coaching practice. My spiritual philosophical perspective is that everything in the universe is in perfect rhythm except human beings. And I
Mm,
brand myself as a rhythm coach, as the rhythm coach. And I see myself as an expert in building rhythm. So the conductor of an orchestra, right? They are keeping the rhythm of every instrument. And a leader is the same way. They're the ones that make it all happen, and how they do what they do, when they do what they do, what they say when they say it, how they say it. Everything affects the rhythm of everything around them. Me and my family, you and your family, everything we do affects the rhythms around us. I believe everything in the universe is in perfect rhythm. That human beings, I guarantee you, depends on where you live, that the summer will eventually come after the spring.
mhm,
And I guarantee you that the fall will come after the summer.
mhm,
Birds will fly, fish will swim. There's a perfect rhythm, but the same is true. And I use this mindset with coaching as I'm working with someone. All I'm doing is just trying to get that rhythm. In fact, my book that I wrote is called In Rhythm, The Key to Purposeful Engagement, because I believe that it's a perfect rhythm that drives all of that engagement, whether it's with a peer or whether it's with a direct report, whether it's a higher level leader that I'm working with, organizationally, team dynamics, all the pieces can get a perfect rhythm. You've seen sports teams that have perfect rhythm. You can take Wayne Gretzky when he was playing, they had perfect rhythm. Michael Jordan, the New England Patriots, whomever. Look at any of those teams when they were winning, they had really, really, really good rhythm. If you listen to any sports program, I guarantee you're going to hear the word rhythm somewhere.
mhm.
That's what everybody's looking for. So I use that as my coaching to build that connectivity with my client, as well as helping them build it with whomever they're working with in their organization.
And rhythm isn't a noun that I hear associated with management and leadership that often. I tend to think in terms of habits. It takes 40 days to build a habit and to make a subtle change in one's rhythm, if I can put it that way. It's always interesting watching people and helping people make that journey. As a professor, I'm used to doing that in a compressed sense because I've got 2, 3, 4 months with the audience in the class.
Mm.
And yes, they're students, but I always think of ourselves on a learning journey together.
Yes.
And we do the same thing in coaching because we're learning more not only about the clients, but ourselves. And we have to adapt our coaching practice to serve the best interests of the people who have taken us on as trusted advisors. But that journey of self-discovery, of finding one's rhythm,
Mhm.
takes a leap of faith on the people we serve. It's more than work for just us, for us as coaches, but it's a lot of work for the clients.
Yeah. But, I think right there, Bill, is that even as you and I come onto this podcast interview, right? For me, I'm following your lead, and this is just the process that we go through. However, what I understand that's critically important is that as you and I find our rhythm in this conversation, both of us can walk away saying, that was good. And then the
Mhm,
audience can say, that was good. You know why? Because we found a rhythm in this engagement. And I think
mhm,
when I do this with a client, I am so confident that we're going to find a rhythm. I am so confident. And that rhythm is going to drive their growth and development in what areas they desire, because there's a space, there's a good rhythm, there's a habit that's being built, not because we force it, because it's very natural. And rhythm
mhm,
is natural, right? So I'm just filling the space of understanding, and as a coach, I'm always diagnosing before I prescribe. I'm always diagnosing before I prescribe. And so I can't find a rhythm until I do a proper diagnosis. So
mhm.
I'm reading the audience, I'm listening to the audience. I do a lot of keynotes, motivational, inspirational speaking nationally. And so whether I'm with 100 or 500 or 5,000, it really doesn't matter. because I've got to find rhythm with all 5,000 or 10,000. Doesn't matter. If I'm in the space and with my congregation every week, I've got to do the same thing.
Mhm,
Find that space of rhythm every single time with everyone in the audience. That's where the magic happens.
mhm.
We find that.
And there are days when it's easy to do that. There are days when it's more of a struggle,
Hmm.
at least for me. But, I'm as we talk, I'm buying more and more into this idea of rhythm as part of the practice of advising our clients and the people around us, because that's another interesting lens to look at relationships through, that we're not just participants, we're offering advice
Yeah, yeah.
no matter where we are.
Yeah, yeah, we're not participants. I love the way you say that. We're not participants. Everyone's a participant in the engagement.
Mhm,
How do we make everyone a participant in the engagement? And so, yeah, you're right. There are times where you're meeting someone and it's sort of awkward. I know when I first started coaching, and you may not believe this, Bill, but I'm sort of an introvert, believe it or not.
mhm,
And to get out and network and connect with people, my rhythm was off and I knew it
mhm,
was off. And so it took a lot of work when I started this journey to find my rhythm because I was awkward. It's like holding a golf club for the first time. I'm still awkward in that, by the way. But it was awkward the first time I held it because I knew nothing about it. I knew how to swing a baseball bat, but I didn't know how to hold a golf club, right? And so I was awkward. So I think the same thing was true when I went into this space of coaching, but I think the same thing is true when a leader goes into a new role. If you
mhm.
accept and acknowledge that reality, now I can grow. But if I go with the assumption the title gives me insight and credibility and knowledge and skill, and that's not always true. So therefore I stumble and bumble because I'm not acknowledged that I'm really, still learning the process and learning the journey.
And stumbling is part of that journey too.
It is.
We need to um, have the space to not only stumble, but to get our footing and learn why we stumbled in the first place.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to figure that out. And I think this to Bill, that's as you talk, that's where our coaching gives another space to discover that. Because stumbling is okay.
Hmm.
Failure is good. I mean, let's ask Lincoln if he could tell it. Failures. Edison. Failure is good. Lincoln as well.
Hmm.
Failure is part of the journey. And I need to figure out how to embrace that and make it part of the journey without discounting that.
Something that I've learned from reading books about leaders and books about management is, um, it is the importance of those stumbles as part of the journey.
Mhm.
And it's always revealing for me the insights that people have after the stumble,
Absolutely.
or multiple stumbles. It can be very humbling,
Mhm.
but you can't wallow in the humble.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You have to pick yourself up and take a look around you and think about, okay, what am I doing next? What can I resolve to do that will not only help me and the people around me recover, but succeed in a much better way than we could on our own.
Well, I think I said something into a small group at church on Sunday, and I said, how do we learn how to be students in the storms? And I thought that was so brilliant. But I said, how can we learn how to be students in the storms, storms of life, storms of struggle, storms of difficulty? How do we learn how to be students in the storm? And I think as I'm listening to you, how do we as leaders and help leaders learn how to put some framework around struggle and storms and challenges and become a student in my storm? Because
Mhm.
as we said earlier, that's where the learning comes from is those failures and those struggles and those difficult moments. If I can embrace that, and as I said, coaching helps us get perspective around that and not discount those difficulties.
And that perspective is helpful because, you know, as we talked about earlier, people can get too close to the day to day and not see a broader picture of where they and the people around them are. Um, and going back to our discussion about remote work, I work at, in my home office. And yes, there are times I feel a little bit isolated and alone, but I've got a network of people that I can reach out to
Mhm.
when that happens. And I find that energizing and encouraging. Like you, I consider myself an introvert, although it was interesting when we were at the Focal Point conference a couple of weeks ago, we did an exercise where people arranged themselves in the room based on their responses to different questions. And I ended up in the extrovert corner of the room, which surprised me. And it actually gave me a lot of encouragement
Yeah.
that, I've become better at the habit of being an extrovert than I thought that I had.
Yeah. Yeah, I think to your point there, all of us can adapt if we put our minds to it. If we can just sort of get some space to begin to think about, guess what? I know I have introverted tendencies, but
Hmm.
my new world is going to require something different. How do I navigate this space and adapt and make those adjustments? And like you said, we may all have our own aversion to different, you know, ways that we've grown up, but how do I make these adjustments? And I think that's where coaching again creates that space. And to your point, when people work remote, there is that isolation. And how do I keep the connectivity? I don't give a get up and go walk around the house or go walk outside down the street. I need to sort of give myself this greater space than these four walls of the room that I sit in. So get up, go out, connect, get on the phone, talk to someone. Like you said, we've got to create more space around us.
Hmm.
The space exists around us.
And creating that space is essential. Being more engaged with the people and communities around us requires effort. And it also requires being more vulnerable
Hmm.
as part of the learning journey, because learning means that sometimes we realize, oh, I'm chasing down the wrong path, or there are other paths that would serve me and the people I advise and work with better.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think you're right. I think the journey is real,
Hmm.
and we're all on a journey. Bill, we're all on a journey, and it's okay to know we're all on a journey. And I don't believe there's any limit to any human potential.
Hmm.
When I look at the Artemis spaceship, I'm like, there's no limit to what we can achieve.
Hmm.
We're on that journey. Why don't we continue to pursue? What's stopping me from pursuing? I don't care. We have a lot of homeless people that come into the church because of where we're located. They're on a journey somewhere. It may not be the same journey I'm on, but they're on a journey, just like a leader that I work with or an organization that I work with. They're on a journey, right? How do we help them navigate the journey to achieve what they desire to achieve and then keep pursuing? Because that's
Hmm.
where the rhythm takes place.
Yeah. And it's important to have a community around us that encourages the journey. I've been in organizations that felt static or even felt that they were falling behind because that encouragement just wasn't happening on a regular basis. That habit had fallen apart in people as they turned in on themselves.
Yeah. Well, I've got as soon as I leave this podcast this morning, I've got a workshop that I'm doing with an organization's finance team.
Hmm.
And they have a lot of dysfunction.
Oh dear.
And the leader is feeling isolated. To your point earlier, the leader's feeling isolated. She's relatively new in her role in the organization, and she's feeling isolated by the internal team. And even the internal team has its own dysfunction, right? And
Right.
so being able to sit in there with them and help them navigate that journey to a better team dynamic, it's so possible. To me, I think everything's easy. Bill, I think we can achieve anything. And to help them navigate, we will achieve what we aim to achieve with them. I don't go into any space that I don't believe I can achieve what we're aiming to achieve. But they're going to have to go through these tough discussions in our session today of why we're dysfunctional, what's driving our dysfunction, what does that look like for us? But at the end of the day, we really still want to achieve so that no one in the team feels isolated. Because isolation is a very dangerous thing for a leader or a team
Mhm.
member or anyone's. I think you're right on about that word. It's we need community.
We do. And part of that journey is looking towards the future with ourselves and our community. What do you think the future of coaching looks like over the next few years?
I think what's going to happen over time is that people are going to. I think someone said it at our conference, Bill.
Mhm.
We'll try the AI route of trying to get answers to problems. But at the end of the day, people need to talk to people. They need to have that people person interaction. So I think coaching will continue to evolve. I think coaches are going to have to figure out how to better brand themselves. Not that I have figured out, but I'm building everything around rhythm. I can't be all things to all people,
Mhm.
but I can help a leader find their rhythm so they can get it with their team. They can get it within the organization. I don't care if I work with a CEO, which I do work with,
Mhm.
frontline leader, which I do work with, and everybody in between. I worked with higher education, presidents and deans of colleges or law enforcement, city leaders, chiefs of police, fire chiefs. So everybody's trying to find out the same thing. And so as I continue to build what I do, I think branding as a coach is critical. And I think
Mhm.
we have to continue to brand coaching for what it really provides. And there's different coaching approaches out there. There's business coaching, there's executive coaching, there's life coaching, there's team coaching, there's group coaching. How do we get specific for what we want to provide and stay in our lane as best as we can? And so I think coaching is going to continue to evolve. I think the greater need is going to open up because I think it's going to become a premium opportunity for people
Mhm.
stay in the commodity space. I think people are going to say, you mean the top people in the world have executive leadership coaches? Absolutely. I mean, you look at some of the top athletes, top professionals, they have their own personal executive leadership coach. And I think that's where it's going to begin to evolve. It's going to be a premium offering.
Mhm. I agree with you. AI is excellent at finding patterns, but it doesn't understand context and it certainly doesn't do nearly as much as a real conversation like the one we're having today and the ones we have with our clients. They're much more valuable that we do as trusted advisors that I don't think AI can even touch. There's the trust, there's the essential work of building the rhythm, as you put it, that will always be valuable.
Absolutely. You're right. I think we better. How do we find that rhythm? How do we engage with people? That's what we want. Again, we talked about isolation. AI can help you with isolation. It puts you in more isolation.
It does. It does.
But I think that's exactly where we can see coaching go. And I think as we invest ourselves in this space, I think more and more people are saying, how do I connect with someone who can meet me where I am,
Mhm.
help contribute to this journey that I'm on and achieve all that I can achieve. That's what coaching does. That's what I love to do. I think you both we love to do that. And that's who we are. And it's very genuine, very heartfelt, but it's intentional and it's honorable to help another leader or an organization achieve more. That love it with everything I've got.
Excellent. Excellent. Any closing thoughts for our listeners and viewers, Terry?
I think just being able to help people discover and unlock that potential. Again, just one person that I worked with, I went into the work session and she said, "Hey, I've been waiting to talk to you." I said, What's up?" She says, "I got it." I said, "What do you have?" Because I had told her, I said, "You're reading every book, listening to everything you can get your hands on, and you come up with a new game plan every week." She was an HR professional. And I said, you're chasing the flavor of the day, but you don't even know who you are. So through coaching, she was able to identify who she is. And I think this is to your listeners, I would say again, coaching can make a difference just to have that space to talk to someone and get new ideas, new perspectives. And I would say if there's anything I would challenge you to do is to make sure you open up the space to have the conversation and feel free to give myself Bill a call. I would like
Okay.
conversation because hey, we are in this business to make a difference with every life. So Bill, thank you so much for letting me being a podcast. It has been such a pleasure.
You're welcome. It's been a great honor to have you on the podcast, and I really enjoyed our conversation. I hope our listeners and viewers did so as well. And looking forward to welcoming our audience again on another step on the perfect route.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.